Well, you're not gonna end up with 2.
If I walk out, it would be.
Oh, well, yeah, if you walk out, are you gonna walk out?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on how I feel.
Okay.
No, I'm just curious because if 2 of us only vote.
That being said, if Jared joins us electronically, and he may, then we wouldn't have that issue.
So you can take mine off because this is what you put it on there too, so.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about it during the work session
Yeah.
thing, and then is there gonna be an actionable item that we vote on?
No, because I, like I
Because it's just
said,
changing fee schedule, right?
and I had some things that I wanted
Push my
to.
arm on that one. I mean, look at me here. I'm
My
ice
whole
cream.
thing got wiped.
So are we gonna maybe postpone the whole thing then? Because I just put it on there as a
figured
while. I'd like to hear
first
you
thing of
guys.
the week.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Kimberly,
Thank you. Red velvet, huh?
Whose birthday?
Mailed out.
It was
Yeah,
just
mail
treat
that.
today,
Yeah, I went to
Tuesday
grab
treat day,
it.
and I was at Harmon's and they didn't have what I wanted, so
Probably berry.
I grabbed a cake. And
Yeah, I'll throw it in the.
if you could use
of course,
Thank you.
because I'm
and it has eggs in it, right? That's good. Of course.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Red
That
velvet.
stinks that you're committing
Okay.
down.
Brandon,
Jeremy can't even tell me why.
Jeremy hooked this up to
The only option it gave me on my screen
finds
was to
out
wipe
real
it.
quickly. I needed to know.
So I did, and I brought it in to him, and he goes, all we can do is wipe it.
You lost
Because
everything.
I mean, it's time now throughout the whole.
Not everything, he was able to go back in my desktop and recover some.
And then afterwards I can go back. Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, should we get started on our,
Yeah, we better.
okay. We're gonna begin our work session. This work session will last about an hour. We'll begin our regular commission meeting at 5 p.m. The work session will start with discussion regarding historical efforts with Rachel Turk.
Let me kind of preface it a little bit before we do. Basically what this was is, the last time we had talked about the Golden Hills project up there. And of course, one of my goals have been in this county is to preserve some of our historical facts, historical places as much as possible. And so I started, not just 2 weeks ago, it's been months. I've tried to see what we can do to maybe have a little bit of a, maybe something in the future. Doesn't have to be now. It doesn't mean I'm going to oppose the Golden Hills thing. But what I am looking at is potentially working with Golden Hills, if they are willing, to do something along a historical line for the old California Trail, the Mormon Trail, and the Pony Express, and the Donna Reed Party that came right through our county. And it comes partially in Golden Hills property. So we've gone back in history and looked at things. Rachel and I have looked at it, and I've talked to Chris from the state history department. We had a meeting last week, so I invited him to come up, and he's going to give us some other ideas to help out with this whole project. And Rachel is going to give some information too, and then we want to have a discussion with the Golden Hills people, if at all possible. Yes, they're all there.
Well, we're not all here.
But a lot of you are here, and so I'm just kind of wanting to, we can sit down and just talk. We're not going to make any decisions, but the state would like to give us some history or some information that will possibly help the whole situation out. One of the goals of Morgan County's tourism, or the vision that I have for some of the tourism and economic development in this county, is to have a little bit of history, because people like to come here for history, or go around the world for history. And Morgan County can be part of that. We have a scenic by route, a scenic byway, and I took pictures of the area the other day just to verify my thoughts. And so anyway, I'll let you two kind of give me an idea of what you've thought of, and then we'll let them discuss with us.
Rock, paper, scissors?
I'll kind of start us off, and then I can let Chris. It's like I don't know who to like address here.
Us and them, all of us.
So I have all this documentation because this isn't the first time this has been discussed. This property and the historic significance of it. Dating, there's been different mapping efforts. We have up on here, and I'll let Chris talk a little bit more about the mapping efforts, trying to document where the trails went. We had the Mormon Pioneer Trail going through here, preceded by the Donner Party, who was the first group to come through. We have the Pony Express, we have Johnston's Army. We have a lot of history, and so there isn't necessarily just one single route, but looking at trying to find what was the most pristine portions that we can definitely tell are very important to preserve and show what it looked like and what it still looks like. So yeah, back in 2004, actually maybe even earlier than that, 2002, we have Goldfleck, and they came up with some development plans that never ended up coming to fruition. But part of what they were trying to make the goodwill efforts to preserve a preservation corridor about 300 feet on either side of what would be, determined as the best sort of like trail route, and preserve that through the development. And so looking at, the lots that are being proposed today, we just want to have a discussion and hope that we can work with everybody in trying to maybe make some sort of that easement, a preservation easement. If that's not possible, how can we make sure that we preserve the most pristine pieces? As far as these being, 4 lots, 160 acres, there's a lot of space in there that we can work with to make that happen, I believe. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing that. And I'll let Chris talk from the state and sort of what they have offered to do is so that we can get this done. Do you want to jump in and talk about that?
So thank you, Rachel, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak to you all. So my name is Chris Merritt. I'm the State Historic Preservation Officer for Utah. I manage all the state's preservation programming, and Commissioner Fackrell and Rachel reached out last week to get my input on this. I do want to lead out with, there's no restrictions from a state's perspective on what you do on your own private land. There is no restriction. But I am very grateful for the opportunity that both the commission has asked my opinion, and he also said that the community itself is interested to learn about some ways to preserve some aspect of this history. Very often, development moves forward on private land without a real consideration of the historic integrity. So I'm happy for this conversation. And I know there's a lot of things at play, but I just want to say thank you for just hearing this discussion. So as Rachel put forward, we have what we call a trail corridor. Is that if you've watched any Western movie in the history of Westerns, there's no single line of wagons. There's no single line of anything. So trails are braided by their very nature. And then when you add 1846, the Donner and Reed Party, and then 1847, the Vanguard Company, the LDS, and then Johnston's Army, et cetera, we have a bunch of trails in one corridor, which is this valley. As Rachel mentioned, in 1990 was the first effort to map those historic trail segments in the property that we're talking about today. That's well after East Canyon had been built, which obliterated a good chunk of the trail from that property boundary down towards East Canyon State Park and to the south. So The problem with 1990 is that there were no GPS units, there were no accurate mapping technologies. 2004, when T. Michael Smith, who was a church historian, came out when the property was being looked at by the church, he also did sort of a review of the historic analysis, but none of it has come up with very clear identification of where the trail physically is. And the 1990 survey is the best we got. So I asked my staff after our conversation on Friday to overlay modern aerial imagery, your proposed lots, and then that 1990 map. And that's what's being shown on the screen right now, is the blue. Kind of ignore the purple because that's just the data set that the state has for trail locations, but you see how wrong that is when you look at the archaeologist that was on the ground in 1990. Now, that 1990 map showed certain segments are less intact than others, particularly basically everything that cuts through Lot 6 on that eastern side. It's already a two-track road. It's lost a lot of its integrity. In the 1990 survey, they kind of identified that western blue line as the most intact historic trail tread left. And that's close to where that main road looks like it's going to be proposed, splitting the two lots. So from a preservation perspective, we want to protect the most intact potential site locations. As you go north out of the current lots being reviewed, that big sort of oxbow, there are segments up there that were also intact. And so what I was hoping to plant a seed today is, one, an offer, but I know it complicates the conversation we're having today. I have funds available through the state and through my federal grants. I could hire an archaeologist with no cost to the landowner to survey those corridors and try to better identify those intact segments with the landowner's permission. And then that would give very clear identification of where the trail is and where it's not, and what's been obliterated and what's still intact. I'm happy to cover that payment and hire a consultant and work with the landowner to do that and provide that information publicly to both the county and the landowners. That's to me the biggest issue, is a lot of this is not on the ground 2022 quality mapping effort. Now, if we do identify a really cool segment of the California Trail, I want to put this in perspective, is when you look at the California Trail from when it left St. Joe, Missouri until it got to the Truckee Mountains and the Sierras, there are chunks that are still intact, but Utah has lost most of the trail between Salt Lake City and Wyoming, through railroads, through road construction, through reservoirs. So we've lost a lot of this historic integrity east of Salt Lake City. As you go to the West Desert, there are pieces of that that are also being threatened right now. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation of, like, what could preservation look like here? Could it be, if we found a 200-foot segment of that trail, could it be a pullout on that access road that's separating the lots with an interpretive panel so the public could see it and understand that history? Could we look above to the north where the next phase of development is and identify maybe a larger portion there that could be incorporated more fully into the development plans, well in advance? And the properties that we're talking about have an amazing vista overlooking East Canyon. That's one of the allures, right? But what a great opportunity to tell visitors to Morgan County about that corridor of history. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity to present this information, make an offer. I'm happy to provide the funds to hire a consultant who would identify that in that narrow swath that we're talking about to give better planning. But I know that does complicate things.
Okay. Go ahead. Can I go ahead and have somebody from YARCA? If you want to discuss. If you don't want to, that's fine too.
Jim Flint, I'm a great-great-grandson of official relative of the Donner Party, wherever that's worth. Simon Breen was my great-great-grandfather. I come through the Patrick Breen, Margaret Bolger line. They're the ones who survived, so I don't know. Take that anyway. Take that anyway.
Good or bad, right?
Yeah. Anyway, we're happy to engage in the conversation, and I don't really have any input. I did, on a different count, I did bring a map of the tank you'd mentioned, and that is on the USA property, but that's a separate item.
So it is on the USA property?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
all right.
show that here later on.
Oh, I've got a picture
But,
of it here too.
I don't have too much to add. I think the big thing was the definitiveness. And it's a little, it is late breaking. I'm here to listen today.
Okay. I have another thing that Chris was talking about to us on Friday. If you could maybe talk about what happened in Tooele County, I think it was you were talking about? Big Rock or something, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Ensign Development, which owns a couple other development companies, started developing just south of Lake Point, north of Tooele, a new housing development. At that point, the Oregon-California Trail Association, which is a nonprofit that kind of dedicates themselves to the interpretation of this, they reached out because that development had intact trail run. You can still see it today. And the developer loves history. Chris Robinson, Summit County, he's like, okay, let's create a pocket park. And so it cost about 4 or 5 house lots, much smaller obviously than these lots being proposed. And they created a pocket park, and so it's added value to that community because now there's green space, plus it preserved the most intact trail trace from really Salt Lake City until you get west of Tooele. So there's this little cute pocket park with trees. We're going to put interpretive panels in, and it's going to be a nice feature of that community going forward.
Okay. So basically, yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Oh, well, I've really had to walk away from this project for a few years because it's been so intense
I know that.
and so difficult. And we have tried over the years to do everything we can to work with the Mormon Trail. We've tried to donate ground back. We had one with Reynolds Fokker. I don't know if you know Lynn Reynolds Fokker, one of the first projects we proposed. And it had a huge park that came in. We know the Mormon Trail. We've been to the people on the Mormon Trail. They had no interest in it. They said, we don't want to do anything with it. And it's so frustrating to now get back to what you guys have said we couldn't do any more than 16 lots. And just prior to that decision, now we've got this. It's a large investment group. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm probably going to be dead if this goes on any longer. And a lot of the investors in the group will too. I don't know what we can do more than try to give you back half of the ground at one proposal, give you a big park that incorporated all that and make a big visitor center for you. And so at this point, for me, I would be more than happy to entertain with future buyers of this property what you're proposing to do, because I think it does have great value. But I can't answer for them, and I think that your proposals, we've wanted that all along. But when you're told there's no interest, over and over again, and we've got the Forest Service, and we've got half of the people of Morgan coming out, it is overwhelming. So this is what we came with, is what Morgan County said they wanted. And as all I can tell you is we'll do our best to work with some future plans, but I'm not going to be the buyer of this development. Someone is, and hopefully we could lead them in that direction with the ground that they have, and that there would be money to reimburse them for a trail and for a park and for a visitor center. If they're willing to do that, but there's nothing that I can tell you short of we can't do anything else because we've tried it all. And now we're back to square one. So I'm sorry,
I can see your frustration, Robin, because I think before I became a commissioner, it was a problem. We had a council at that time that was not necessarily conducive to anything happening in this county. They wanted to stop all kinds of growth. They wanted to stop everything.
They want to stop everything, and
And-
I've been told that I'm the devil reincarnated because I came in to Morgan County wanting to
And I
make it a
think,
beautiful area up there and give open space and work with the Checkers and work with the Mormon Trail.
yeah,
And
and
no, they wanted it divided up into 160 acres. That wasn't my first
yeah.
belief that that's what that should have been.
And that's why we wanted you to come up, and I wanted you because one of the future goals that I'm trying to achieve in Morgan County is that we can all have a good place to come to. It is all private. Morgan County is 94% private. And
We
there's-
came with some
and
great
you
proposals, I
you guys
think.
came with great proposals, and I appreciate that. All I'm asking is can we maybe on the other phases at least look at maybe looking more futuristic?
The
And
commitment you'll get from me is that I'll do everything I can with the future buyers to lead them in that direction and show them what a benefit it could be. But that's all I can do now, and I think if somebody doesn't snatch it all up and do something totally different, I would be shocked if they didn't, but I don't have any control over that either, and I don't have any control over these 4 lots, but I'm more than willing to help you. We've tried to work with the Forest Service, and so I just want you to know how.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and we're both new in on what's going on with this. And so
It's
me
been
looking at the
16 years.
Yeah, me looking at the history and seeing that this has been part of the
2004
plan. And then
or
now seeing
6.
this, it's just like, I just want to see that continue, but it's part of the discussion.
Well, I think anybody that would want to come in and do any kind of different kind of development, or maybe even on their ground, I can't imagine one person would want a visitor center on the corner of his lot. But things change.
Yeah.
All the time things are changing. So,
I would love to hear from our planning department just
Yeah.
regarding what our code says and doesn't say regarding historic locations and that sort of thing. I know we do have a section of the code that covers that.
Yeah, there
Do we
is.
want to save this for the action item for the staff report, or is this just more?
I
we
think
revisited this over the
it's
years.
okay to have a little bit of that
Through it.
discussion now.
Yeah, let's have the discussion now, so
Yeah.
we don't have to later,
Okay.
okay?
But that being said, I'm not trying to stop you, Robin, if you have more to say.
I don't. I
Okay.
just want you to know
Okay.
that we've tried to really bend over backwards. for
Well, and
Morgan.
I think what he'll have to say as far as the planning goes and the code goes will hopefully help ease your mind a little bit. And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is we do not have an ordinance that says you can't place a subdivision because there's a historical area. There's nothing to restrict that. We do have a historical section in our ordinance that talks about registering both an area or a property or a structure and kind of what that means. But I want to be clear that there's not an intent to say, well, you can't do your project because there
Right.
was a trail here.
Right.
The intent is to say, we want to work with you to make sure that we try our best to preserve this while also accomplishing your goals of being able to use your property to its,
I think we've always been open
Potential.
to try to
and
work
I
with
think you
guys.
are, I think
Yeah.
you are, so.
And that's what I've noticed since I've been working with you for a year now, year and a half, is that at least we're talking.
Right.
Before we weren't.
No.
It was all yelling at each other and saying no and absolute, it was just horrible. And that's one thing we've been trying to do is work more closely if we can with private landowners to accomplish what we need to accomplish in this county. So,
I guess I missed those yelling meetings. I wasn't in.
oh, I
those
was
other
there.
ones.
I was in some of them not as a participant. I was in there as the audience, just listening to it all.
Wow. I
And
mean, there were
so-
some pretty angry people from Morgan. And it
Oh, yeah,
was-
there were.
It's very
Along with some of the council too.
want to come back up and approach that, but
Yeah.
thank you for listening to us, and
Well, thank you.
we'll do everything we can to work with you.
Thank you, I appreciate that too.
Josh, do you want to just briefly tell a little bit about what the code says or doesn't say?
Well, I can't quote the historical section or whatnot, but I can tell you that administratively, code-wise, preliminary plats, final plats, those types of applications are checklist. And as long as the applicant has checked all the boxes, so to speak, there's really no findings to hold up or deny a preliminary plat or final plat. For an application like this, to make sure that you get those trails in the future, you might want to think about having a plan development or some ordinance portion in the zoning section that would allow for them to have additional flexibility in entitlements, cluster development, or whatnot, that would give them an incentive to dedicate that land over. Other than that, there's nothing that would require them to dedicate that land.
Right.
There's case law as well that would say that it would be a taking if you did.
So just, I guess, for the benefit of everybody, we've got administrative decisions and we have legislative decisions. An example of administrative decision is a subdivision, right? It's administrative in nature. We're checking the boxes. You meet the criteria, you check the boxes, you're good to go. An example of a legislative decision would be a zoning change. So I know some of the folks in this group were involved several years ago in the plans and came and requested a zoning change. That was legislative in nature, and that's a little different. The council or commission, it was a council at the time, had the leeway to kind of decide how they were going to go. It wasn't a checkbox thing. This is a little different scenario.
Right. My understanding is the PRUD at that time would have allowed for cluster zoning and some flexibility to give them additional lots that they may not necessarily have had the acreage for under the MU 160, which would also have given them more incentive to dedicate that land as a conservation area or whatnot to preserve those trails.
And I think you hit it on the head. That's exactly why we've discussed we'd like to bring back some form of PRUD so that we can have some flexibility, because there are unique properties in the county. This is one of many that are unique and have their own, be it historical or natural resources that we want to preserve. And a way to do that would be through a planned development of that nature. So.
That's right.
And that being said, down the road, this, future buyers or development could be a planned development in this, should we?
So under this development agreement, then, does that mean the future phases, can those be changed, or are they just?
There's no development agreement here. This is a standard subdivision.
All right, okay.
Under the current zoning.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And that's why they're large acreage, 160 acre, because that's the minimum zoning currently.
Yeah. One of the issues I think you'll find in the future, dealing with the future property owners, is that there is liability to the property owner for public access across private land.
So the roads that are going to go through there, are they going to be completely private, or are they going to be public roads?
Right?
Because I noticed in this it was private.
Yep, some of them will be private access lanes and some will be private streets.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have, unless you guys have more. So the development, the landowners, my question then is for you, you're willing to work with us on future phases or future potentials within ground before something comes to us for final approval?
Technically, there's nothing that we can require them to commit.
Well,
to
I
that.
can't require, all I'm doing is asking if they're willing to help.
But even that commitment, they
It
don't
is verbal.
have to make. It can't be made a stipulation.
Right.
So.
I understand that.
Okay,
I totally understand that.
All right.
I'm just asking for cooperation.
that would be up to them.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's a work session, I don't mean to be vociferous or talk too much.
That's what work sessions are.
Just looking at the ideas that have kind of gelled, I see three things. One's a placard, two is a visitor center, and three is what I would call a traversable route. And just kind of background, that road that goes up, every single lot has had 5 studies on it. Hydrogeologic, geologic, within a 2-acre window. Hydrogeologic, geologic, geotechnical, septic testing, and it's got a water rights assigned to it. So that area is a very well-defined thing. Just looking at the map, If you were to go 300 feet on either side of that, you'd be going right through those studied areas that are the building mandated areas. So I think a big thing, you got placard, visitor center, route. I think the first thing perhaps to discuss would be traversable route. You would be encompassing the building sites, and it's been said previously, you'd be going through private land, which is, it's just a little awkward how many people would open up their backyard to a public trail. And that's the thing that stands out, just trying to bring some definition to what we're discussing.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Sorry, I wasn't going to say anything. You may have been here several years ago when I stood up here and looked at everybody that was against everything that we had wanted to do, and I said, the land is for sale.
I remember that.
The land is for sale. From my perspective, I thought it was 18 years. Sounds like it was 16 years.
8.
I've raised 2 children. I'm trying to retire. I've waited 16 years for my investment to pay off. And I think before you say, well, let's just have a conversation about this. Let's talk dollars and cents about this. I've got another assessment coming up to put roads in where they are now. I've had assessments all along. Every time we have to do a new survey, a new study, I get a new assessment. My value is going down on this ground. It is not going up on this ground. And you want to turn around and redo this whole thing? Who's going to pay for all of these new plats? Who's going to pay for all of the new roads? Who's going to pay for all of the new surveys? You're going to survey what you want to survey. That's not going to get our plats rezoned. That's not going to get our lots redone. That's not going to get, like he just said, now where's the building, where the building is going to go? I just think you need to look at it from somebody who has worked all of her life. I am not a rich person. My husband has worked all of his life. We're going to our retirement years. And I get it's a long-term investment and nobody can guarantee anything. But to sit back and say, let's just redo this again. How many more times? And if we do redo it again, how long is it going to take before I can get a lot that's ready to sell and maybe make some reinvestments? Right now, we have somebody that wants to buy one of those premium lots. That buyer is going to go away. How long is all of these studies going to take? How much of my money do you want me to invest to make somebody else happy?
We're not asking for necessarily the trail through those 4 lots. We would like to be able to look at the future lots, or before the future lots are put out there, as potentially that, unless it's something you don't even want to consider at that point, then I can make my decision too.
You know what? I would
I don't want to.
I would have loved to have saved the sage grouse. That set us back how many years with the sage grouse? That's a non-issue now. Again, like Robin said, we gave proposals. We had parks. We brought the Mormon church in. I'm Southern Baptist, and I'm not a historical person, so I don't know who's involved in the Donner Pass or not. Would I love to do something? Yeah, we all would have. We tried. And not all of you go all the way back, and even as I hear the little bit that I do, because they protect us from most of this in our group, is every time we do something, there's 7 more things that we have to resolve. And every time we do that, then you go back to this. And we didn't want 1,660 acre lots. That's not where the value is. The value was to do smaller pockets of homes and have affordable housing and have a golf course or have a pool or have some commercial and not affect the roads and not affect the schools. And now we finally have all that. And now I have to go home and feel a little bit guilty because I may be stopping something that a lot of people would enjoy that I would love to be involved in. But in my lifetime in Robbins, I'm right behind her. Not only a couple of years, but I'm right behind her. I would like to reap my rewards and not leave them for my children. And I really would just appreciate you thinking about the time and the cost that falls on us, because I don't have a whole lot of money, certainly not going into retirement, and certainly not with what these new special assessments and SEPITs would cost me and my family. So just look at it from the little worker bee just trying to make a living. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more?
I'm done, unless you guys have something more.
Okay. Okay, we will move to our second work session item, discussion regarding fees for facilities. And I had added this on here, but Matt's really the one that's driving this, so I'll turn it over to him to discuss.
Thank you, Chris.
So, I apologize, but my iPad got wiped, and so they were kind enough to help me out today and get me back up and going. But my biggest concern is, and what I've tried to prepare previous to this was from all the people that I've received things from, including today. This is really difficult. I guess we didn't seem to have, at the rates we were charging before, we didn't seem to have many problems with that, other than some issues with not cleaning up the facilities and such. But they're trying to take money. The financial area is trying to take money. They're trying to make reservations. We tell them to make reservations online. People aren't used to all of that. But then when they get online, they see the amounts, and then they want to talk to one of us, and they're concerned about the amounts they're paying. So probably we went from one end of the spectrum to the other, perhaps. And I want people that are, there's one gentleman that has his police force come up, and they love the area because it's more open. They can train. They don't have to stay in a line. And so they can make real life situations and train. Well, it's not feasible for them to pay what we have for out of county residents to do that, because they do it on a quite frequent basis. So I think I just would like your guys' input on what those fees were. I don't even remember what the fees were at this point before. But the gun range is the biggest problem, other than the out-of-town residents that want to do the parks. There's been a little bit of, and then there's some church groups and nonprofit organizations that we need to deal with also. But the rifle range is the biggest problem. And I don't know if we can do 2-hour increments, because in the past we've just done full days. And so they're charging for a full day, and so that's how I was looking at it when Blaine and I sat down with, I can't remember who we sat down with, the previous treasurer.
Oh,
Zach, and that's how we looked at it, and it seemed cheap for a day of the gun range. But they don't use it for the whole day.
Well, we do 4-hour increments at our parks. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do increments at the gun range. I don't know if 2 hours is sufficient, or 4 hours, or 3, I don't know. But that seems reasonable to me to do.
And I think last time we wanted to find out, I know the gun range is the big problem, but we were looking at what does it cost us? Because in our audit, we can't be charging to make a profit. We have to be charging just to take care of it. And that's all we can do. So whatever it takes to the cost of doing that is what we need to be looking at. So if it costs us $15 for the whole day, then somebody's pay is out of whack. But I mean, whatever that cost is what we have to follow, because we don't want to go in a deficit just to take care of
that cost is greater than what that would be. We probably lose money to maintain a fire break around that.
That's right.
Even at the current
whole
higher
facility,
rates.
and we aren't up to code as far as our long-range shooting areas and stuff. Our berms aren't the right height for that. So
Right.
we've been trying to work on that a little bit at a time, and as we get some fill, it's not such a huge expense to bulldoze a perimeter around it for a fire break. But if you get, rifles shooting out past that perimeter and hitting a rock and starting a fire, then we have an issue there. We need to get those backdrops.
And there's other costs that we have there that, we spend $100 a month on an outhouse, right? Year round.
And then we have the garbage.
So, and then we have trash, we have employee costs. For the rifle range, we have to have a cost because somebody comes in and picks up a physical key and takes it up there. We have to fix the thrower up from time to time. There's a lot of costs involved. I doubt we're covering our costs or even coming close. And honestly, that's why when we had the fee discussion, my opinion was our taxpayers are subsidizing this through property taxes. And I would rather our local folks be able to use the facilities than people from out of town. And that's why my suggestion was let's triple the rate for those from out of town. That being said, I can understand that does place some burden on some of those from outside of the county, and maybe tripling the rate is too much. Maybe we should have just doubled it, or 50% more or something. But I do still believe that if you're not a Morgan County resident, you ought to pay slightly more to use our facilities, given the fact that if you are a Morgan County resident, you're subsidizing those facilities through your property taxes. But that's just my thought on it, and I don't have any issue with adjusting the rates to, if you feel like they're too high or they're skewed or we want to break it up into increments. I think that's great. Let's do it.
Okay.
They are in increments right now. I just pulled up the website
Are they for the rifle range?
for the rifle range, 2-hour increments
Oh, okay.
currently.
And are they then 25 and 50?
They are 15 and 75.
Oh, because we went and dropped that one for the county residents.
To 15.
To
instead of
15.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
so
But
25.
we didn't adjust the out of
and
county.
We didn't
75,
adjust
but
the others.
So if we wanted to go to 30 on the out of county, 15 and 30, I think that's very reasonable. Especially given the fact that, and I know we've heard the complaint on the rifle range, well, I can go to Ogden and do it cheaper. Well, yes, you can, but in Weber County, you're renting a space to shoot. You're not renting the entire facility.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And
And we
honestly,
can't-
if they bring a big group, their cost per person is really cheap.
Yeah.
And we can't,
We
we don't
can't
have.
make it.
Yeah.
We can't double book and triple book and hope.
Well, and our
nobody
costs
gets
would go
shot.
way up too if we had to have somebody out there all the time.
It wouldn't be safe,
How much is it being utilized right now? Before we raised it.
Got utilized a lot. I don't know how much it is now.
I definitely believe that our usage has gone down on the facility
Right,
since we started charging.
Yeah. But before that, I understand it was pretty full
It was pretty full.
all the time.
Yeah. And that's another reason why, again, I believe that if you're out of county, you ought to pay a little bit more, because if it's filling up with people out of the county and we're subsidizing it as landowners within the county, that's really not fair to those who live here. But again, if we feel like the fees are too much, I don't have any issue adjusting them.
Okay.
I think that's fair to do.
Yeah, I think it's fair to do.
And the truth is, these fee amounts we're talking about, whether it's 15 or 30 or 15 and 75, they're still not covering our costs. We're not bringing in a tremendous amount of money on these fees.
Sure.
So,
And then some of the other fees, we've got our economic development people that are requesting, they have a year-end, I don't know if it's what it is, but it's basically businesses that come here to try to help other businesses, and because it's the BRC, and they want to use this room in the auditorium. Yet now the fees are so high, and we've never charged them in the past, so now what do? We've never charged it in the past, but we've had this event every year, except one
So
year.
what would you call these groups?
because we've had
They're
multiple
government
come in,
groups.
we've had,
This one's a government group.
well, yeah, I guess BRC is a
BRC is
quasi-government group.
Yeah,
But we've got other groups like for example, the Water Users
Yeah.
Association, the ditch company that uses it for an annual meeting. We had the VFW
Yeah.
that request to use it. And And
So are
I
those
think-
for,
These are not for profit.
they're not for profit? None of them?
No.
Ditch companies aren't?
No, they're not.
I'm sure a ditch company is. It's a
No, they're
company.
not.
It's not a, just because they don't make profit doesn't
No.
mean they're a
They are a
non-profit.
non-profit. I used to be the secretary of one of them and treasurer, and it was a non-profit organization.
Some may be,
So
but
they
I
don't
don't think
have-
they're
they don't
registered
have-
as a
That was the South
non-profit.
Morgan Weaver, South Morgan Ditch Company.
Not all of them are registered as
So what they do
non-profits.
is they put a bunch of money in savings for upgrading systems.
That's right. That's
Okay,
exactly
so they are for profit.
Yeah, that's
No.
still for profit. They're not a registered non-profit.
Yes, they are. Go look at
Not
it.
the ones that I have
Which one
been
is it? I
associated
can
with,
look
and I
up.
sit
Look
on
it
the
up
board
for
of
us.
two of them.
Which one?
I sit on the board of two of
Okay.
them. They are non-profit.
Then tell us the name of
So
it.
what's the name?
Okay, Musser Irrigation Company is one.
What is it?
Musser Irrigation Company, South Morgan Ditch. South Morgan Water Ditch Company.
I know every one of our water,
So
our culinary
Musser-
water providers are companies.
Musser Irrigation is a
Musser is
nonprofit.
a domestic nonprofit,
Okay.
and the other one was South Morgan.
South
South
Morgan
Morgan.
Water Ditch Company. And then I can give you the others if you'd like.
And that one is a domestic nonprofit.
Okay, now go to the Morgan Ditch Company. I think it's called Morgan Water Ditch Company.
And look, this is fine to look up, but the point is, I don't think we can say you have to be a registered nonprofit.
Right.
If that's the line we're gonna draw. Because I agree, these are nonprofit or not, but VFW isn't necessarily a registered nonprofit. I don't know, maybe they are.
Maybe they are.
But, I don't know. So, whether it's a nonprofit or not, I don't
Nonprofits have
know.
budgets as well, so.
Yeah, they have budgets and they have funds and they could pay for facilities as well. I mean, they.
Yeah,
do
my
all the
water's
time.
not cheap
That's true.
over here at my apartments.
Yeah.
It's not
Secondary water.
Secondary water.
I know
agree,
they bring in
secondary water.
plenty of money that they could pay for something if they rented it.
And they just raise our rates even further, which I'm part of that too.
Well, $100 a year isn't gonna break them for their annual meeting, but
They're gonna raise their rates for $100, Blaine?
Yeah, they will.
No, they wouldn't.
If they don't cover the needs, they will. I'm sorry. I look at all those things, and if it doesn't meet the covered costs, I'm gonna raise your rates.
well,
If it's
yes,
$5, we're
I'm
gonna raise it.
sure.
Well,
If
we
we
can
have
just vote,
attorney-
we can
if
vote
we
on
have
it
an-
and you can vote how you want.
But I guess we need to figure out though how we indicate, if we
I
are going to have
understand
either
what you're
reduced rate or no rate, we have to decide how we're going to indicate that that entity qualifies for that.
Okay, so
Correct.
how are we gonna do that?
That's the question.
Okay, all right. And so who?
I don't think we could say you have to be a registered nonprofit necessarily. Because that could bring up a whole can of
Quilting
worms.
people are not,
What's that?
the quilting people.
They're not a
that-
registered nonprofit,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
we allow them to do that. These are good things that happen, and I think it's good to use a public facility for some of those good things. But, and the criteria couldn't be, well, they can't generate revenue doing it, right? Because your ditch companies generate revenue.
They do generate, yes.
So
But like
I don't know
BRC
what
does
criteria
not.
we do.
Quasi-government, I don't care what you call it. I mean, we don't charge taxes to the BRC. We don't charge property taxes at all,
Yeah, that's because
because they're
They're-
quasi-government.
yeah, our government. But your ditch companies are not.
You file a return every year, but you don't pay anything. Because we're only allowed to keep so much money there for backup.
So there's probably two ways we could do it. We could either keep a running list of those entities that we allow to use it at a reduced or no cost,
Okay?
and we could add entities to that list. Or we can come up with some kind of criteria that says you're allowed to use it without a fee. And I don't know what that criteria would be.
So what if we do it based on having them ask. Request, kind of like,
Instead of doing it online.
They could submit a request to the commission for
Correct.
a waiver of the fee.
correct.
Do we want to deal with that every time? Or do they submit a request once and we put them on a list and say, okay, we've determined that it's okay?
That's
to do
okay.
this.
Yeah,
And then we give the list to those booking the facility.
that would be fine too.
It does create a little added layer of,
Cost.
I guess, bureaucracy, which I don't love, but I don't know how else to deal with them.
Well, maybe, and
We've already kind of started doing that.
I wish, maybe Robert has a word for it, I don't know.
Maybe,
Yeah.
okay.
Just put it all together for next time with the.
Do you have a word for
As
it?
long as you're consistent, because some is historic use, that's the quilting. They've
Yeah.
used it for however many years. Some might be, was there a waiver for the Republican Party, or the Republican Party at least said, hey, well, we didn't get a waiver, but you're allowing a waiver for something else?
Yeah,
And so maybe that is the best way, is it comes to the commission and we say, okay, well, a historic use, they've used it for X amount of years, okay, well, then that justifies a discount.
And they only have to come once.
we put their name on the list and
And then
that's
it's
the
done.
list.
Yeah,
And I think if we do that, it'd be good to have written in our policy something that says this is the criteria. And maybe historical is one, maybe if it's quasi-government, it's another, political parties, nonprofit, things like that we could say. But we also probably ought to think about limitations, because what if, for example, we say, hey, nonprofits, we're not going to charge. And there's some nonprofit that comes along and says, hey, we could use their facility 5 days a week if we wanted, because they're not going to charge us as part of their policy.
Yeah.
So we probably ought to have some kind of criteria. You're allowed two meetings a year at no charge if you're on the list, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Something of that nature, so that we've got some clear criteria, and it's, because someday none of us will be here. Could be
Then it
somebody
could-
else,
then
and
it
they're going
can
to look
be-
at it and say, well, why'd you do this?
and eventually, hopefully, we'll have an event center in the county where we then can charge if they want
Well,
to use the event center.
Not us, but
Yeah,
whoever owns
but
that
whoever
facility.
owns it or is here.
Of course, I would guess that most of these that have come to us and said we don't want to charge are probably not going to spend much more for an event center versus using our
Right,
facility.
right.
Okay.
But that seems okay to me, and I would say, Matt, from
If
my
I got
perspective.
with you, could you help me make some criteria?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you want to adjust fees, let's bring it back and
Adjust the fees and we can approve them and,
Yeah, maybe we can do it all at once.
okay.
You good with that?
Mm-hmm.
I am.
If you have suggestions on.
It's an assignment on my list.
Okay,
Yep.
sweet. Like it. Okay, last work item discussion, discussion regarding state holidays. Julie?
It was brought to my attention by one of our employees that there's one little thing in the state past holidays that we don't offer our employees. And I don't know if you guys have talked about it before, but I thought that I'd just bring it up. So, of course, I marked them, the orange ones are the ones that we honor, and then there's
Okay.
this one in pink that we're not offering. And so it just basically says, each employee may select one additional day called Personal Preference Day to be scheduled pursuant to rules adopted by the Division of Human Resource Management. So the employee that brought this to my attention, plus another employee, brought up the fact about the day after Thanksgiving as being an option, or the day after Christmas, or however it falls. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. It says it in the policy here, and if you want to consider honoring that or not, or
It says it in what policy?
it's the
Sorry?
state
Utah
holidays,
code.
the past.
The Utah State Code?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
Utah State Code. And it's the only, I went through and checked everything to make sure that we're following all of them, and we are, now that we've added Juneteenth. That's the only one, it's number D, 1D, that we don't honor. And I don't know why or why not, or if you would want to or not, but it's my job to bring it to your attention.
I have a question on it. If we allowed that, and say everybody in the county wants to take off the day after Thanksgiving, does that mean our facility's not open?
Yeah, it's closed for the day, just like probably other city and state and county buildings might be too.
So typically though, if you have a lot of places call it a floating holiday.
Yeah.
I get that, well, I used to at work. Generally speaking, that would not be the case. Every department would have to schedule that, and it would have to remain open. You wouldn't just close down for the day.
Somebody would have.
Now, Morgan County is a political subdivision of the state, but that doesn't mean that we follow all the state policies and procedures and everything else. So we're free to say, yes, we want to do this, or no, we have no intention of following that. An employee could certainly use their, from my perspective, an employee could use their vacation time, which they accrue at a pretty healthy rate, faster than I accrue it at my job in the private sector, and take any of those days off that they choose, provided that the facilities are open. So I personally am not really interested at this point in adding an additional paid holiday, but
I'm
if
not
there's
either.
other thoughts,
I'm not either.
I'm not either, at least at this point, until after budget time, because everybody's gonna want a raise.
I mean, I
You know
guess we
that.
could do that in lieu of a pay increase this
That's
year, but I don't
right.
think employees are gonna be happy about that.
That's right, they're not, so I would say at this point, no. We can
We just
discuss
added
it later.
Juneteenth,
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
which I thought was a fraud.
yeah, I agree.
Just needed to bring it to your attention.
And they can get mad at us.
We don't get mad. We just want to make sure it's known.
Well, it's no.
I just want to know if they're spending county time looking at state statutes.
Well,
It doesn't matter with this one because.
I
it
do.
works in the hourly.
Yeah, he does. He spends a lot of time because it's-
Yeah, I catch a couple of you do.
I can imagine.
But I doubt it was either of you two.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Short and sweet.
Okay.
I've said it many times, I'll say it again, and I'll say it again during our budget time, I'm sure. But for many, many years, we've had the notion, and it's been true, government employees typically have better benefits, right? And so their salaries are generally a little bit lower than the private sector because they have really good benefits. But in recent years, we've been pushed really hard, we need to get salaries up to compete with the private sector. And in many ways, and in many places, we've done that. But the benefits have also stayed really high.
That's right.
We
And
don't want them.
and our benefits don't compete with the private sector. They're way beyond the private sector.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good example of that. And so my suggestion is to encourage the employees to understand that, yeah, you may not get every single state holiday there is. I don't get that in my job. I don't get the 24th of July off,
Geez, I don't
or
get any
Juneteenth,
holidays.
or a bunch of other things. And I don't get 90% of my health insurance paid.
That's right.
I get 75%. And that's only because I've been there for a long time. And that's how most are. And I don't have a retirement plan like paid into state retirement that's going to give me, it goes into a 401k, and hopefully the market does good so I can retire in 50 years, right? But I think those are things that we need to remind our employees that, hey, yeah, I understand that sometimes your wage may not compare to the private sector, but your benefits way, way outweigh the private sector. And if you really take that into consideration,
It's a big
you'll be
deal.
very happy. It is a pretty good
It's a
deal.
And just so
big
you know,
deal.
I do every chance I get, and I'm coming up with a way to make sure I reach everybody. So, and then just to let you know, we have our training tomorrow with Casell to figure out how to do the budgets within Casell.
That's right.
And they, you know, basically, with that, they're gonna then teach us, or I'll be teaching you either way. Okay?
All right. Yeah, let's see if we can set up a WebEx with them. I think that would be best if we can.
Okay.
Okay.
Right on time.
We're right on time.
Can we take a
Yes, we sure can.
5-minute
We're gonna take
Ruski?
A 2-minute?
A 2-minute thing if you can.
Okay, I think I can take a 2-minute.
I haven't tried this cake yet.
Is Jeremy coming? I mean Jared. Have you seen if Jared is online?
I don't do that.
Oh, okay. We'll have to wait for Brandon to come and help us.
I barely just figured out how to get my email on here. With Brandon.
Okay. All right. We'll need a break in about an hour and a half, though.
I just reached out to make sure he's meeting.
Well, right, yes, they got their business license and their check is also there. I just told her to go ahead and send it. Yeah, I told her to go ahead and send it because I did not have time to take it to her.
I could get it tomorrow, but I could get it
Yeah, so you can go down there and see if she's got it. If not, I mean, she may not be there, but check it out. Okay? What's this? Oh, okay. This is on the economic development thing. This is the DMO's portion and the tourism. VistaWorks. Yeah, but I'm gonna take some. Yeah, let me show it. Here, let's look through the camera. Photos. Where is it? Is that the photos from this one? What are you looking for? Yep, there it is, right there.
You sure of that?
Well, I wanted to, but
Jared is not going to join us.
okay. I was going to show that, but it's not necessary now unless they.
Unless you can set it now and just
Okay.
from that corner.
Yeah, but they're going to be using it beforehand.
Okay, Apple TV.
So,
Yep,
yeah.
just click just like that. So you're
Okay.
mirrored up there.
I'm mirrored up there now, but
It's still there.
okay. But if I want to mirror, then I can. Commission room, and then how do I get it to do? Because it's not doing it right now. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Let's have to disconnect, make sure somebody does it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
We ready to rock and roll here?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to the Morgan County Commission meeting, August 16th, 2022.
Brandon,
Want to recognize those
how do I disconnect?
community members who are here joining us in person and any who are joining us online.
How
We
do I
appreciate you
disconnect
tuning in. Commissioners McConnell and Anderson are not able to be with us this evening. We will begin with an invocation or moment of reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Commissioner Fackrell to offer that.
Our dear Heavenly Father, this afternoon, we're grateful for this opportunity to be here. We're thankful for the opportunity which we have as a county to make our own decisions and to make those decisions that will be beneficial to every member of this county. We are grateful for the community and the county as everybody we hope are trying to work together in finding solutions to whatever the problems might be. We ask Thee for Thy guidance and Thy Spirit to be with all of us throughout this county, that we will be able to work together to come to a common goal of what we are trying to achieve. We're grateful for everything that thou hast given us, and we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fackrell. We will move to our consent items. We have one item, that is approval of the August 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any adjustments to the meeting minutes that
There
have
was
not
a...
already been given to Julie?
Oh, okay, I didn't give them to you, I'm sorry, but there are a few. And if, let me get it back up.
I swear, no matter how many times I've looked at it.
Okay, under... Okay. Under Jake Young, it says recommended by approval. It should be for approval from the Planning Commission. That was number 3. And then in number 4, in your notes, there was condition removed. That one needs to be, if in your notes, there were conditions removed. Were conditions removed. So that means you've got were and an S. And then under Gina Grand Prix, number G. Okay, Gina Grand Prix, it says a proposed conditional use, you've got us, permit. And then a little bit further down on that, it says a managed plan needs to be created. You need a management plan, is what was discussed. And then the same with just a little bit further on under the
I see.
motion, yeah, management plan. And that's it.
Thank you.
You got the couple that I had, management ones. So,
Okay.
do you have any, Commissioner Wilson? Okay, with that, we'll look for a motion to approve the August 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the August 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes
I'll second it.
with the corrections.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Commissioner's declaration of conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we will move to our public comment period. This is an opportunity for the public to make comment to the commission. We do not have any public hearings on the agenda tonight, so this will be the only opportunity for the public to address the commission. We will ask, if you do address the commission, that you limit your time to 3 minutes. Please state your name when you come up to the podium. Okay, seeing no public comment, we will move to our action items. Action item number 1, Leslie Hyde, discussion decision, tax sale, ratification of 2022 tax sale.
Hi.
How are
How are you guys?
Good.
Do you have any questions?
Nope.
So we had a property in Mountain Green that we sold on tax sale through our public surplus website. It was amazing. It worked out great. However, the buyers defaulted and did not follow through with paying for the property. So it's going to go back to the county now, and I just need you to ratify the decision.
So that means basically that we now own that little piece?
Correct.
Okay.
It's up to you if you want to deed it to one of the neighbors, if you want to just hold it as ours for now.
Okay.
It's a tiny piece of property.
It's adjacent to a public street, it looks
Yes.
like.
Yeah.
And it's a tiny piece of property. I think the bidders put in on it and then did some homework and went, maybe that's not what I want to do, so.
Yeah, it's a very small piece.
Okay, so in this case, we are looking for a motion to ratify the results of the tax sale that was held June 15th, 2022.
I move that we ratify the 2022 tax sale as Leslie has explained it to us.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the ratification of the 2022 tax sale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you.
While we have you, Leslie,
Yes.
let's get an email chain going to coordinate our dates for budget
Okay.
camp, if that's okay.
You bet. I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2, Josh Cook, discussion decision, Golden Hills Estates, Phase 1, final plat.
Good evening. The developer of Golden Hills Estates is recommending approval of their final plat, which would include 4 lots and Phase 1. The total lot area of the project is 2,156 acres. Each of these 4 lots would be a minimum of 160 acres, so approximately 611 total acres for this first phase. It will be accessed off of Highway 66 and Highway 65. The streets to access the lots will be private lanes and private drives. Staff is recommending approval with 7 conditions. The subdivision meets all the criteria within our code. It has the zoning and entitlements that they need, and it is in conformance with our general plan.
Okay. We did discuss some of this in our work session previously, but just for the benefit of the public, this is an administrative decision, so we're discussing whether it fits the criteria of what's outlined in the code. Planning Department has reviewed, so has the Planning Commission, and both have determined that it fits the criteria outlined in the code for a small, is this done under a small subdivision?
The total number of lots for the entirety of Golden Hills Estates is 13.
Okay, so it's not small subdivision,
It's not a
it's
small
the conventional
subdivision.
subdivision.
It's
Okay.
just 4 lots for the first phase.
Okay, perfect.
And are these private roads going to be gated?
That would be a question you would need to ask.
I was just curious is all.
Yeah, I don't know if their intent is to gate them or not.
No, I know under our code, and I don't know this, but multiple use, basic, which is what the 160 is, it says that to avoid the premature development of lands by discouraging intensive development until the ultimate best use of the land can be recommended by the Planning Commission to the governing body, and to promote the health, safety, convenience, order, prosperity, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the community. If this is the case and people do buy, or when they buy these lots, they're an MU 160, can those be altered just because it's an MU 160? According to
property
that,
owners-
according to this code?
Property owners have a right to apply to rezone their property. Rezoning is a legislative decision which would allow them to come before the Planning Commission and the County Commission, where you would decide if the rezoning is in conformance with the general plan or not. And then you would vote to whether to allow that rezoning or not. However, this is just a final
I
plat
know.
for 4 lots, each lot being 160 acres in size. One of the permitted uses is single-family residential dwelling.
Okay.
So the entitlements based on the zoning is they're entitled to build a home on each of these lots. And they've checked all the boxes.
You want me to make a motion?
Sure.
I move to approve Golden Hills Phase 1 final plat, application number 21.046, allowing for a 4-lot subdivision of land located in section 1, 2, 3, and 11 of T2N R3E off of Highway 66 and East Canyon based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 16th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Golden Hills Estates Phase 1 final plat. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Barber, discussion, decision, quarterly
You're
report.
lucky.
Morgan CEO Board. This probably should have been in the presentations, but that's okay. I don't know that there's any decisions to be made.
No, there isn't.
Good evening, how are you all?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm up and taking nourishment, so. We'd like to report quarterly from the CEO board, so this is our first quarterly report, and we'd like to go over these 4 pillars of what we're doing. And so we'll start out with the chamber, go to the Business Resource Center, and then James and I will do the economic development, and then destination marketing will be from Justin Reese of Vista Works. So with that, I'm just going to have the chamber come up and start with that presentation, and then we'll walk right through it.
Sean, when you start here, how much time did you indicate we're giving each of these 4 groups?
We shouldn't be that long, probably
Okay.
20 minutes, most.
Great, thank you.
Is that 80 or 4 times 5?
That should be 5.
Hello. Just a quick update on how the chamber looks up on the information we have up in front of you right now. We have 47 total members. 5 of those are new members. We are actively holding our monthly lunch and learns. The only months we don't have those is when we have an activity. Young Dodge generously donates their conference room for us to hold those the second Tuesday of every month. And they also provide lunch. So those are a fun thing to attend. We just finished our golf tournament the end of May. That was a success. July 4th was a huge success. Probably our biggest one to date. And then we are looking forward to our Christmas activity, of course, that comes up in December. We have a ribbon cutting coming up the end of the month, August 31st, for the new health department that's going to go in the city building. And something we're trying to help work through right now is the interchange. So that's kind of our report. Any questions you have for us?
I do. So if there's only 47 total members of the Chamber of Commerce, what are we trying to do to get the rest of them in? 'Cause
We're
there's
working
a-
through some different avenues. We've talked to Justin to try to help us get some of that going. We've got some new campaign things that we could talk through, trying to come up with some ideas on increasing that number, getting a list of business owners in the county to send information to. So it's a work in progress.
I think that's a very impressive number given the number of events you do with that few of membership. I mean,
Keep in mind, the board is only a few of us.
I know the board is
Yeah.
even less.
Yes.
Not all of those members are active, and the fact that we're able to put on the golf tournament, the 4th of July activities, the Christmas, what's it called?
Yeah.
What do we call
Christmas
it?
on commercial.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commercial Street Christmas.
I was thinking downtown Christmas.
I mean, that's amazing with such a small group. So thank you to you, to your board, to all those who put in. I know your families all pitch in because you can't do it alone.
Yep.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, did you have any questions? Sorry. Okay. Who's next, John? All right. BRC.
Good evening, all of you. It's great to be with you here tonight. On behalf of our team and Davis Tech, we're grateful to be a part of the wonderful Morgan community, and we just wanted to share a little bit about the impact that we've had over the last quarter. If you don't yet know Andrew Willis, he is a major part of how this happens, as he is our director of the Small Business Development Center. But the impact numbers that we have up here are from Q4 of our fiscal year. And just a couple of things of interest to note. We've had a personnel changeover, so we're still working through a little bit of the growth of training, but some kind of a fun opportunity that's come across is our Northfront Business Resource Center. We now have a partnership with the school district, and that's where the community evening education classes are being held. And so it's kind of a new use of that building that we're thrilled to be an additional partner to the school district. But we've had some good financial impact on the community there. That's all tax revenue generating income that's coming in. We've done a handful of company visits and continue to do more of that. And I'm going to turn a few minutes over to Andrew. The business grant report, it's still very new, but we'll let him speak to that.
Okay, the businesses that you approved here in the last meeting I attended and now have their checks, they're now spending their money with the opportunities that had been discussed before. It's very exciting to see their continued growth. And on their behalf, I just want to thank you for making that possible. In future reports, we'll be able to include exactly specific progress that they're made. Right now, they're just excited to be spending that money to build their businesses.
That's awesome. Thank you, Andrew, for your work in putting together that grant program. I know that took some time and effort. So.
Well, it wasn't me. We had a committee, and we appreciate it. Everybody worked hard. Okay, thank
Awesome.
you.
The BRC is a great organization for anybody in the community who's not aware of what they do. They do it all business-wise. They can help you with questions, business plans, financing, and they're located across from Ridley's in the old Val's Flower Shop.
Mike, you are hired for the marketing
Yep.
campaign.
And if I could just mention, and those services are free of charge to the community.
Which is also amazing.
And so when you say 5 jobs created, does that mean that that's people that you've recruited, that you've placed here in Morgan, or?
Those are jobs that businesses hired. Now, one thing you need to understand about those numbers, about the jobs created, the business starts, the financial impact numbers, those are based on businesses who took the effort to come report to us about progress. We do a survey once a year to the businesses. That's in January. So our numbers look really, really good in February. But now that we're past that for this year, our numbers will look really, really good in February of next year. So between now and then, as businesses report numbers to us, we then can report numbers to you. We're going to try to find ways to get those numbers, get better numbers earlier so you can see what that's looking like. But this is just from a couple businesses that reported to us. You know, businesses like Innovative Structural Solutions, they hired, I think, around 10 to 12 people just in June. So as they report to us and actually give us a signature showing what the impact that they're having, then we can report it here, but we can only report it if they actually give us verification.
That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
What is the unemployment here in our county now, from what we've been told by Darren?
It's up just a tiny bit, which is great news, unfortunately. I don't have that data in front of me, but I know that it's risen to almost 2% in Davis County, and typically Morgan's been about 0.5% behind. So I would imagine you're very close to 1.5.
We probably have 4 people unemployed.
Yeah, I was going to say, a little while ago, when Darren last reported in one of our economic development meetings, is he had reported there were only 14 people in the county that were unemployed, or at least those that were legitimately looking for a job.
Right.
And I'd say that's pretty low in our county.
I would agree.
Yeah. So do you help people find jobs?
Not
No?
typically. Our expertise is more in the field of entrepreneurship. So when someone's either looking to start a business, or they want to scale and grow, or they're pivoting, we can help. Andrew is a fantastic counselor and consultant for business growth and expansion. So whether you just have an idea and you want to get going, or it's time to take it to the next level, that's why you would send people to the BRC.
Okay.
Now, as far as unemployment goes, they need to go to Division of Workforce Services, which Darren is over that, and I don't know his last name.
Rogers.
Rogers, that's right, Darren Rogers.
Yep.
And he can help people find jobs.
Correct.
If they need that. And of course, they can go to the BRC and they can direct them to him.
Sure, be happy to. Any other questions?
No, thank you again
Okay,
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to invite James up to do a little bit of an economic development report, and we're going to hand these out, and we can put them on the screen if you want.
Didn't we see you last time?
Yeah, you have 45 minutes, right?
No, you got,
45?
you got
Yeah, we're
3.
going to raise it to 45 minutes now.
So I got 2 minutes.
Because James is talking.
The answer to your question is yes. We filled a little bit of time in our last meeting with an economic development update, and so I will keep this fairly quickly. First, I want to say, very impressed with the work that's done at the BRC. Thank you to Amanda for her leadership and constantly keeping us on task. And Andrew is amazing at really finding the resources to help businesses expand and relocate, and then manage our grant program really well. So again, thank you. Working with our lobbyists, we did get our $5 million for the EIS and our initial engineering, so we're very fortunate to have received those dollars, and we're going to have a meeting hopefully fairly quickly with additional legislators, as the programming opportunities to fund the entire project are right around the corner. And so there'll probably be outreach to commissioners to have some of those conversations, just to reaffirm the commitment, not only to the interchange, but also to the understanding of the growth that will occur in Mountain Green and around a possible town center, and the importance of that to those residents. And so we're very pleased with the process we've made and the opportunities into the future. The Development Committee is extremely pleased with Joshua, so great job in your hire. It's no reflection on anybody else besides Joshua, but he's brought a little different perspective in view and really keeps the rubber on the road and the train going in the right direction. The Development Committee is going to tackle the PAD next, along with Joshua, just to make some recommendations. Joshua will review those and pick and choose the ones that he thinks are appropriate for the community, and then at some point present that to the commission. Communication plan, I believe, is moving forward, and we're excited about that. An opportunity to communicate not only things that are going on in county government, but also community needs, community opportunities, events, and just general information. I believe that the county can do a much better job at that, and I think the communication plan will assist that. And I know there'll be huge components with outdoor tourism recreation that will help complement that. We just, I think, received word today that the Inflation Reduction Act passed. I believe it was signed. I believe there is a large broadband component of that. We actually have an RFI right now, and as we review what's in that bill, it will help us make decisions on what direction we're going to go. But I believe strongly that there will be opportunities to help continue to build out broadband within Morgan and make it probably the center piece of our economic development. The Geodome has hit a small snag. We're looking for a different vendor to purchase it through. We do have all the property ready to go. Chris Hiramoto is extremely excited about the project. He already has lined up some glamping to be a complement to that until we can build out the Geodome Village. And that will be a huge amenity at East Canyon, and hopefully provide additional opportunities for outdoor recreation, TRT, etc., so on. But we do have to find a different vendor for the dome. IBI is continuing moving forward on their analysis, and they're going to send out fairly quickly the study. They were just waiting for the communication plan decision to be made. And under workflow is Como Springs. I'll just hit this really quickly. Como Springs came in front of the commission. There was some issues that need to go back to planning commission for basically a plan and insurance. And I think Joshua was on top of that, and it may or may not come back to the commission. There may be a decision just made at the planning commission to move that forward. So that's moving forward. That's what my point is, and we appreciate that the commission caught those little things and sent that back. Because I think there's some things that need to be in that assurance in that plan that would make sense from a county perspective to get shored up prior to moving forward with the Como Springs plan. Beehive Cheese is extremely interested in the relocation. They bring 55 jobs in it, with expansion, probably additional jobs. We will need to have a discussion with the RDA board. I need to schedule another meeting for the RDA board and start the process of looking for project areas for additional RDA opportunities, CRA opportunities. Beehive Cheese may be one of them. An overlay into the Mountain Green Town Center may be another, and some general areas where we think or feel strongly that the growth will happen, and we want to make sure we have the right growth in the right locations to best fit the community needs. That will be something we need to have discussion at the RDA board. Nine Springs is in the planning phases. Joshua, have you had your meeting with them in city design yet, by chance, do you know?
We generated comments for their development agreement.
Okay.
We also generated comments regarding their submittal. I just set up a meeting for next week where we're going to sit down and go over comments with them.
So for those of you who've been around a while, that is warp speed right there. So it's been probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That large as that project is, it's gone through a whole process. Comments have been generated, and a meeting's been set up to initially start that. So that is huge kudos to planning on moving that forward. 9 Line, as you know, was approved last meeting and is in pre-planning. Hopefully will be into planning fairly quickly if it is not already. And then some just general concepts as we start looking at affordable housing opportunities and workforce development opportunities. And again, we don't think of this sometimes, but affordable housing for seniors. There may be some tools out there that will have discussions in the RDA board on what that would look like and how we could facilitate that to provide the housing for those just beyond your single family dwellings, and how as a county we can assist in that. Just as a general update, I did stop by, Commissioner Fackrell's beat me up for a little while about restaurants, and if you haven't had a chance to go to the barbecue shop there on Commercial Street, it's delicious. Jack, sat down and talked to Jack for a while. He says he sells out most of the nights, and so I would suggest to anyone to continue visiting those restaurants, because the more people we have visiting them, the better chance we'll have to continually grow our restaurants and amenities within the county. And then just a quick shout out back to our chamber, Northern Utah Chamber of Commerce. We did attend that meeting, which Morgan is a partner in, and they did put the interchange on one of their prior lists for transportation. So my assumption is that will be fairly high up the list as we continue towards our legislative session. And that's all I have, unless you have a question for me. Under 45 minutes, but over 2.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Let's go over the budget for the state grant. The first page that you have in your handout is 21 and 22 budget that was submitted. And you have your actual matching contribution funds, and then so the actual expense out of the grant was $202,174.29, which the reason that went up past 200 is because of the local grant program. We raised that by $3,000. So that was last year's budget that was submitted to the state. The next page is the expenses. And so if you look through there, they're categorized across the top by who they were paid to. If you look at the UTA section, that was for the ski bus. So is there any questions on the expense lines?
Just as a general point of information, thank you, Commissioner Fackrell. That is out of your general ledger. Those are all inputs that you have put in, and so they're directly reflected back to the county's auditing and budget.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Blaine for his hard work in getting us this. So it was a behemoth effort. Plus, I want to take a minute because we're talking about the Business Resource Center. Some of the things that Andrew's done over the last 5 to 10 years has been amazing for the community, especially the 7 fast track grants that he got. A number of them, one for Bingham Meats, but there was a number of them done. So Andrew has really done a great job and is a great asset for the CEO board. So, is there any questions on any of those expenses?
No, but this is a much easier report to look at, so thank you for getting it put together.
Well, I would like to take the credit, but James did it. Okay, so moving right along, let's go into next year's. This is what we talked about at the last CEO board meeting. Economic Development Director, you can see all the expenses, what we have there. We've increased the local grant program to $50,000. We have some a business development fund and a technical support and grant match, which are more or less just kind of a catch-all for expenses and those types of things that come about. And so, is there any questions on that? That we have not formally approved this, so I'll be bringing it back for an approval from the commission before we submit. Maybe in the next meeting or the meeting after that. So, is there any questions on that? Any concerns at all?
So you're aware, those line items are fungible, and so they can be moved with
Yeah.
them as long as we can justify the use in our economic development strategic plan.
And right now, we receive the grant money normally in July or August, and I've been waiting for it. It has not arrived yet, but that grant that comes to us every year of $200,000 is actually split over 2 years. I mean, fiscal year. Our fiscal year is different than the state's.
We're on a calendar year,
So,
they're on a fiscal year.
Yeah, so basically it's 100,000 for 6 months, and then 100,000 for the next one, and 100,000 for the next 6.
So what you're talking about is the second 100,000 from the 2022?
That's right. No, the next 100,000 would be from July 1 of 2022 through the end of this year.
Oh,
and then we
okay.
have another 100,000.
So it would be on the new budget then?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, is there any questions on those? So I'll take it back and have the CEO board vote on it, and then we'll bring it back for your approval.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right, I'm Justin Reese, and I'm representing Destination Marketing. So recently, VistaWorks was hired to do the destination marketing, and I'm the guy on the ground. That group is a group out of the county here, and has been working very well with us. So the number one task that we have is the promotion of Morgan County and bringing more people in, spending money, and making it an attractive place to come visit. The majority of the work has been to continue the foundational part of marketing. Part of that is, as you can see here and off the handout I gave you, has been some immersion trips with the VistaWorks team, the Hub branding team. I'll come back to them in just a minute. We have another immersion trip coming up with the Coraggio team, which is going to be our strategic plan for tourism. That'll be later this fall. We have submitted for $100,000 from the co-op grant with the state. That would go towards paying for the contract with VistaWorks, website, photography, promotion, all the web and newsletter and content creation, and then starting to get into some of the itinerary and things to do, better promotion for that. The last thing in there, and I'll add some more context on these, is we did have the audit. There was a general audit, and the TRT funding was finally brought to light, and we're happy with where that stands, and that gives us an idea of where we need to go and put the resources. So a few extra things, coming back to Hub, one of the main things that we've been focusing on, and we've got a small subset of people that are working with Hub, which has been hired to do the actual brand and kind of how we want to be presented to the outside tourist crowd. This would be everything from the logo to tagline to the colors, the font, and everything. We are about halfway through that. Right now, that smaller core team is made up of 4 people. I'm one of them. Ty Bailey from the city is one of them. Rachel Turk from the Historical Society is one, and then Andrew Phillips, who's an outdoor enthusiast and long-time Morganite as well, is on that group. And those 4 are meeting on a bi-weekly basis with the Hub team to go through different iterations of that. As we get closer, we'll bring more of those examples there. We're not quite to a defined proposal yet on that. The other one that we're working on is Coraggio. Coraggio is that long-term, longer strategic plan for tourism. What kind of tourists do we want to attract? What are the activities we want them to do? And so we make sure we do that right. But it's something, it's another plan that would be over several years. Right now there is a survey that's gone out to as many people as we can send it to, where they're filling out from different demographics on what do you think of the tourism in town? Is it good? Is it bad? What should we be focusing on? We did that release of that survey about a month ago. It's a little slow. The second iteration, we are getting finally over 100 applicants on that, so we're better this time. But we will bring the findings on that as we have that. That'll be kicking up this fall. The last thing I'll bring up is the website and kind of promotion of it. You can see on the website, we've been working with Mauricio, who had the website before. Over the past month we've had it, our website usage, even though it's still small, is up 60%. So we got over 300 people that look at the tourism website. We will be expanding on that quite a bit with this co-op grant opportunity as we get that money to come in. And then the other fun one, if you haven't heard, Morgan County is number 4 healthiest county in the country. I think it's gyms per square mile or block, because we have so many, which is great. So if we could push that a little more, add a few more gyms in there, we might make it to number 1. But that's been a fun one to promote and get.
0 donut shops.
Yeah. So.
Sit with a broken heart.
Don't tell me that. I want a donut shop.
Any questions?
Not that I'm going to eat it. I just want to run it.
The co-op grant,
Yes.
is there a match to that?
Yeah, so that is a match. So what we requested $100,000. We supported that with that audit that came back, so there's enough to do the match. So we'll see what the results on what they do.
What percentage is that match?
50-50.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we get 100, we can match with 100.
Okay.
And there's plenty in the budget for that.
That's one of those no-brainer grants.
Yeah.
Does that have to be used in a 12-month period, or what's the timeline?
Yeah, I believe so.
Could be a really good kickstart.
Yeah.
It
Get
would.
things moving.
Should be.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions you guys may have of any of the 4 groups?
I don't have any.
Just keep working hard.
Yeah, we appreciate all
Well,
that's
we
going
would
on.
have taken 20 minutes, but James come up, so. All right.
Thank you.
We gotta get a buzzer for him, I guess.
Oh, I can talk through a buzzer, come on.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Boyd. Approval of mutual aid agreement for fire services between Morgan County Fire Department and WPR Road and Fire District.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here asking for the signature of a mutual aid agreement between Morgan County and WPR Road and Fire District. As you're fully aware, each year Morgan County faces the dangers and overall cost of fighting wildland fires in the county. And as we all have been working, and as you know, we all have been working closely with all levels of WPR management team throughout all phases of the large project to mitigate and lessen the threat of fire. In doing so, and with our help and advice, WPR purchased and equipped 2 brush trucks. In 2021, Morgan Fire Department trained 6 of WPR's crew members and certified each in wildland firefighting. In 2022, we heightened our firefighting ability by training an additional 8, for a total of 14 crew members. By signing this agreement, the county would be adding trained personnel and fire equipment to boost our overall firefighting ability in the county. I feel this would be a great benefit to our county as well as residents. I would like to thank Garrett Smith for all your help with this document, as well as the management staff at WPR for all their hard work and taking the time to listen to our advice and taking our advice. Any questions on that document?
Sounds like you helped write it, so you have reviewed it, I assume?
Yeah, I approved the form. We worked with WPR's attorney, and I know Ed is here. I don't know if you want any updates on the fire protection that they're doing at WPR.
I know they're deep in it, and I think anytime we can have a mutual aid agreement with any other agency, almost no matter what, it's a good deal for us. It benefits us, we benefit them, it's just great. So I appreciate WPR's willingness to enter into a mutual aid agreement with us.
They've been great to work with.
Do we want to hear from Ed at all?
Sure, if you'd like. Ed, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I don't know if he has anything to say, but he showed up.
Good evening, thanks. So I'm here as the Vice Chair of the WPR Road and Fire District. And I do have a handout with more details if you guys would like, just even to keep in your back pocket as people ask, what are we doing for our road and fire? So happy to share that with you. But Boyd did touch on it, a number of the highlights, helping us equip 2 brush trucks that we purchased in 2021, and now a new 6x6 that we have that's being outfitted right now in 2022, and then the training of a total of 14 of our trail crew to assist if there ever is a fire. We still were falling under the Morgan Fire District, but now with this mutual aid agreement, it gives us the ability to give back, to help out. Hopefully, we'll knock on some wood that doesn't happen, but the ability to deploy our resources should there be any type of fire activity in the county. So it's been great working with Chief Kerrigan, Fire Marshal Rich. It really helped us putting together our plan. We've appointed one of our team members who's been here for going on almost 4 years as our interim Director of Fire Operations, Will Goldsmith. Those guys have a great working relationship. They've been talking since day one when we first came up to the mountain, started doing any work, putting in safety protocols, muster areas, radio channels, and now with our district, we take the ability to have this relationship to the next level. And we're really excited by that in that we aren't just asking for the county's protection. We are starting to be able to offer some services, and then as our road and fire district grows, we will expand our offering of both people and equipment that will be available should there ever be something that happens in Peterson or in the greater Morgan County area. So we're very excited to appreciate Garrett's assistance in drafting an additional legal document. There has been quite a few that we've been going back and forth on, but this is exciting, just taking our district up to the next level and creating this type of agreement. So we are very excited.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't.
Would you like any of the details?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Just a handout
if you've got them.
Anybody ever asks you on some of the efforts that we're putting forward. So.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being
Thank you.
proactive on it.
Yeah,
It's important
appreciate it.
for all of us in the community. So.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
With
you.
that, we'll look for a motion on approval of a mutual aid agreement between Morgan County Fire Department and WPR Road and Fire District.
I move that we approve the mutual aid agreement for fire services between Morgan County Fire Department and WPR Road and Fire District.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving to item number 5, CW Land, approval of final plat. This is request for approval of the Rome Phase 2 subdivision final plat.
Thank you. So CW Land Company is requesting approval to the Rome Phase 2 subdivision final plat, which encompasses 51 single-family lots and 35 townhomes. Staff has reviewed it. It's gone to Planning Commission. Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval to the County Commission. There are still some fire and survey comments that need to be addressed prior to recordation. However, they are relatively minor and can be addressed. We can make sure that they are taken care of. As far as the findings, for the single-family portion of the final plat, they have met and are consistent with our zoning ordinance. However, the townhomes will still need to go through an additional process. I'm not sure how it was not caught, but we're going to need to bring the landscape plan, lighting plan, and parking calculations forward to Planning Commission and then to County Commission, since you are the land use authority based on our code.
That's just for the townhome
That's
section.
just for the townhomes.
So an approval tonight, would we be only approving the 51 single family, or?
No, it would be approving the sale of the ability to sell and record the entire Phase 2. However, before we would issue building permits for the townhomes, they would have to get approval for their landscape plan, parking, and lighting plan.
And so that goes through you?
So that would be a condition.
That's a condition.
No, it's not a condition. Well, it is a condition attached. Yeah.
So it's listed in the staff
But it would
report.
not.
Yep.
But that approval
Number
would not
one,
be
two.
based on me. So it would come back to you through the
Okay.
Planning Commission.
And there was a condition in here with Brian Brindell. on the fire. Is everything okay with that or not? Okay.
Yeah, I attached the fire comments and survey comments at the end as part of the packet.
Okay.
CW Land's been fine to work with, so they'll make sure it gets done, I'm sure.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't. Is this going to be a moderate, affordable housing area? Because with only 5,000 square feet for a lot, is it going to be affordable?
I can't say whether it is or not. In some places I've lived, 5,000 square feet go for a lot.
So I know most of our homes in Morgan County are 5,000 square feet. Not mine, but. Okay.
To answer your question, though, that it is not designated as affordable housing.
Oh, wow.
We don't have any areas within the county that are currently designated as affordable housing.
Can this be considered?
We're working on it.
No.
We're working on some.
Are you? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the Rome Phase 2 subdivision final plat application 22.001, allowing for a 86 lot subdivision of land located at 4950 West Old Highway Road in unincorporated Morgan County based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 10th, 2022, and with the fall.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the Rome Phase 2 subdivision final plat with the findings and conditions listed in the staff report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Josh, while you're up here.
That's why I stayed. So S&S Holding LLC is requesting approval for the Shady Creek Estates preliminary plat. We have reviewed it, Planning Commission has reviewed it, they forwarded a recommendation of approval for a 21 lot subdivision. The subdivision will be located along Woodland Drive in Mountain Green. It's approximately 18.39 acres in size. The proposal is consistent with the general plan. They have the zoning. There are some additional engineering and fire comments that would need to be addressed prior to recordation of the plat. However, we'll monitor that and make sure those are complied with before we allow the plat to be recorded.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Okay. So you've got you're removing the building envelope from the floodplain on lots 15 and 21. What do you mean by that?
So the subdivision plat itself shows the building lot encroaching into that floodplain. The Planning Commission recommended that they just carve off that portion of the building lot, the building portion of the lot, so that it doesn't encroach.
So the building envelope is the portion on your lot, the area where you can actually
Right.
build a structure. They're just saying that part of it was in the floodplain. They said pull it out so that they
Okay.
don't say, well, I can build here because it's in my buildable
Right.
area.
And typically, the building lot does not mean the size of the home. The home just needs to be fit into that.
Outside that
area.
floodplain area? Okay, all right. And then I had another question. Under review of the preliminary plat, under A, close to the bottom where it says that you sanitary sewer and septic service, are they going to be hooking up to Mountain Green sewer?
And my understanding is they will be hooking up to the sanitary sewer system for Mountain Green.
Okay, good, because I was hoping it wasn't going to be a septic system.
They would be able to.
The lots are.
I know, that's what I'm saying. They couldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Wilson? No. Commissioner Fackrell, do you have any additional questions? Any questions for the applicant?
Let me make sure here, I've got a couple more. Oh, yeah, just as a condition, as an item, after talking with the internet groups, while they're constructing this, whoever's putting in the electrical and all that kind of stuff, if it's being buried, if they could contact a provider like Beehive or whatever, and allow them to put their lines through that also. It would save a lot of hassle later on if they could do it in the construction phase.
You could ask the applicant if they're willing to do that.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any participation from like Beehive or something if we work with them? Do you
Yes.
know if is there any grants or anything that's still available to help continue that? They came right to this subdivision because that's where all the power poles were.
Right.
And now, my Woodland Heights phase, we went underground.
Right.
So everything would have to be conduits, and I'm more than happy
Okay.
to do that and kind of help serve the existing residents as well. But I'll pursue that and find out if in fact there is any kind of possibility of them participating, or do we know?
Okay, yeah, I'll hook you up with that.
Generally speaking, they would cover the cost of
Yeah.
the installation, the infrastructure. And I'm sure, especially if you had a trench open that they could throw a conduit in, they'd probably be even more thrilled to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be more incentive. I would guess for 21 homes, for them to not have to bore and to
Yeah.
just be able to go in and do it, they'd probably be thrilled to do that, to
Yeah,
be honest.
and that's what I kind of got from them the other day when I talked to them, is they would be thrilled to put something in while it's in the construction phase portion of it, instead of saying after it's all completed, we want to put internet in. So just something, and I've got the contacts, you can give me a call and I'll take care of it for you. Okay? And maybe in any future developments, that would, something you might want to also ask if the developers are willing to allow that to happen.
That's something we can ask.
Okay.
You know, that may be something we ought to consider adding in our code, is just, any more internet really is
It's a way of life.
It's a necessary utility, so to speak, and we probably ought to consider having some sort of ordinance that addresses that. You know, says, hey, we should at least put forth some effort to working with an internet company to provide service when possible.
Yeah.
Or to allow them to use the utility easements or something of that nature. Maybe it's not even that you have to work with them, but just that they can use your utility easements.
And I have another question on your memorandum here from you, or no, it's to you, from Mark Miller. Number 3, it says insufficient grading is shown as required by the MCC for preliminary plans. This should be done on a separate sheet. So has that been taken care of, the 15 to 25% slopes, or what's happening there?
No, these are the additional items that Mark Miller will make sure are taken care of before the final plat is recorded.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
And then the one with fire chief, Mountain Green Fire, the 20-foot wide driveways versus, 20 versus 26, is that being taken care of?
So with regards to the street width, the applicant brought up some discussion about a desire to either amend the code or waive our street standards. I asked the chief to be here, as well as Brett Heiner, the Public Works Director, to address any comments or questions you may have about what the county needs with regards to street widths, if those comments came up from the applicant.
I've got the question on it, so I'd like to hear from both of them.
Okay.
Brett and Brian.
So Mark Miller had some question about the width of the fire apparatus access road for the 2 larger lots that run off the ends of the 2 roads in question. So originally the applicant had applied for a 12-foot wide road. I told him that he needed at least a 20-foot wide fire apparatus access road that can maintain 75,000-pound apparatus. But as Mr. Miller pointed out, the entire road's a fire apparatus access road, ending in the cul-de-sac, and then that's an extension of that, depending on whether it's lot 8 or 21. 21. Depending on whether it's lot 8 or 21, it's between 200 and 300 feet in addition to the already dead-end road. So the road's in excess of 750 feet anyway. without the extensions. So, as Mr. Miller pointed out, he had some concern about our accessibility to the end of those particular driveway, I'll call them driveways, and they're actually fire apparatus access roads. Those houses are slated to be rather large from what I can see on the preliminary. Don't know exactly how big, but they're going to be pretty big. And if we have to get in there, and we also don't really have a warm fuzzy about how much of the native growth is going to be removed from that area. One of the problems with us, the reason why there's a hammerhead turnaround or any kind of turnaround at the end of a subdivision is that fire trucks like to go in, and we really like to get out if we have to in a hurry. So one of the things that Mark Miller was concerned about was the width of that fire apparatus access road. If we put 2 trucks back in there for a house fire that becomes a suddenly involved wildfire because of all the native oak, brush, and hawthorn that's in there, that's a concern that we have. So yeah, and that's the reason why fire apparatus access roads or the need for additional roads is always a concern of ours when we're adding, as I've spoken with the council before, when we're adding homes to an already existing, or we're starting from scratch. When we get to a certain amount, the International Fire Code says specifically over X number of homes, there should be 2 ways in and out for fire apparatus so that we can attack from 2 different directions. This really doesn't apply to that because neither of those streets have exceeded that number, but it's pretty clear that a fire apparatus access road needs to be pretty wide. It needs to be 26 feet wide. It's in the code. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I don't know that there needs to be a change in the county code because the county, I think, requires a 30-foot wide road unless it's a fire apparatus access road, or unless it's private. I mean, the Rome is an entirely private subdivision. For example, in the townhouse section, the roads are 26 feet wide because they're private. They're not county roads. In the single-family section of the Rome, those are all 30-foot wide roads or more because those are county-maintained roads. So the road that goes to the end of the cul-de-sac, I believe, is going to be county road. Is that right? Yeah. And then we have that extension. And so because of the length of the road, because of the potential for us to not be able to turn around effectively, there is a hammerhead turnaround at the end, but it gets to be kind of interesting. That's the reason why they put it in the code for a 26-foot wide road. So, questions, gentlemen?
So does this mean that it's going to be, you're requesting that it be that far, that we're going to, it's not going to be a paved one, it's just going to be a gravel road?
No, I'm pretty sure that's going to be paved because it's got to be a hard surface, hard enough that in the wintertime we have no access issue.
So that means you are going to be having those 2 connect? Is that correct?
It's the end, the cul-de-sac at the end, and
The two fire apparatus I call them driveways because it's their driveways. It just has to be built to the roads standards. But they will not connect. They're going into each private residence.
Yeah, they're going to a private residence. So.
And each one services one residence.
Yeah.
It'll be a rather
It's basically it's their private driveway.
They're a private driveway, the county will not maintain those roads.
Okay, so then where is the fire apparatus road gonna go? Because I'm looking at it.
No, that's what he's talking about, that is
That
the fire
quote
driveway is their fire apparatus.
It's really it's a fire apparatus access road. It is. So.
Okay.
Fire chief calls it fire apparatus. I call it driveway. They're both. They're the same.
Okay.
But it's not going to be. It should be. It has to be an all-weather capable surface. That's what the IFC calls for. So generally that means it's paved, but it's going to have to carry 75,000-pound apparatus. That's a ladder truck essentially. So, but yeah. or water tender or whatever else, so.
Okay. I just don't want to have a problem 5 years from now or 10 years from now when somebody's saying, that's a right-of-way. You know, like
it's-
in another development.
It should be private, but, yeah, that's still, it's the access to that building.
Okay. All right. And you're fine with everything that he's got on here then?
Everything else, Mr. Smith addressed, or his folks addressed, with the
Okay.
fire hydrant locations and other stuff. So, yeah, everything pretty much is fine on the plat that I've seen, so, yeah. And I'm sure if we have any questions, we will contact him, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Chief.
Thank
bet.
you.
Fire chief is correct on the width. If we're looking at it at a public works standards, it is 20 feet is a private lane, 26 with your shoulder. And that's the minimum that we need in event of a fire. Who's going to get them in there? I mean, we've had this conversation with the fire chief. I'll give you an example like Robinson Lane, and you happen to live on Robinson Lane. What's going to happen if we have an emergency? They're not going to have a private plow company at hand to go in and help out in these kind of things. So the public works standards is 20 feet and 26 altogether with the right-of-way. Public right-of-way is 60 feet total, 30 feet from the center each way. And we really need to stick to that because of the problems that I'm having in some of these subdivisions that we have had to take over, like Rollins Ranch. I'll give you an example there. A little bit tougher to do our job. When it comes to a hammerhead, really tough to do our job. When it comes to plowing in and out of there, it's never safe to back up a big plow truck anytime. That's why we stick with cul-de-sacs, because you're really short distance on turning around, maybe back up a little bit. So the chief's right about that. So this is a public works, we're right in line with Chief Brindell on what he's talking about as far as the safety aspect when it comes to public works, and getting in access ahead of the chief if we had to, which one day we'll have a big winter. And what happens in these smaller roads is there's no snow storage, so it gets even tougher. And I know we haven't had too tough of winters lately, but we're gonna have some.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's gonna come.
It's coming, and then some of these subdivisions that have gone in, Silverstone's gonna be a really tough one on one of these tough winters. And I wouldn't be surprised if the county, if they came to the commission at one time for some help on these kind of things. So if we can avoid that, keep them as wide as what the chief says, because our plow trucks, if we do have to help out, or if they ever have to be taken over, definitely can't go down a 12-foot lane. It needs to be wider.
Okay. So if you guys approve it, I'm okay with it.
And we can send you these standards. I can send them to you so you'll have them.
Just send it to me on the internet.
So is the width of these private drives now, Josh, what we're seeing on this plat map, are those the correct widths, the wider 20-foot?
Yeah, they are the correct
Okay.
widths. He's proposing the correct widths. He had just brought up some concerns and wanted to talk about changing the code, so I asked them to be here to discuss why we need them.
Why we
the
keep
width they
those.
are.
Perfect, that makes sense.
Okay.
And we did go through this in 20, is the last time we kind of went through to make sure we can try and keep this as our standard.
Okay.
So it's been recent.
Thank you, Brett.
The other issue that they didn't bring up with regards to the width of the streets is the parking on the street. So you get cars on there on a narrow road, and it restricts the fire apparatus even further.
Yeah, and that's what we had on Whisper Ridge, is that we had to go and put signs up because it's not wide enough to handle that. So are we gonna end up with the same problem here?
Well, the only narrow portion is those two private drives. So
Okay.
as long as those individuals who own those homes are not parking at the very end of their driveway, and I kind of doubt they will. I think they're going to want to park closer to their home. The fire apparatus should be able to access them.
Okay.
And if not, Brett might go down there and push them out of the way with his platform.
That's why we call it the plow.
That's one of the roads that we have to get a deputy to help us move vehicles quite often.
Okay, all right.
We actually, and I don't know, do we have an ordinance that talks about street parking during the wintertime? Most municipalities
Have a
do.
snow emergency.
I don't think we do.
We probably ought to address that at some point, that street parking probably shouldn't be allowed during certain times of the year. For Brett's sake, for your sake, I mean, it's not just a plowing problem, it's a emergency access problem.
Or a garbage truck problem.
Or a garbage truck or many other things.
Well, the garbage truck's much more important for them.
We don't have anything in place, but as we build more of these subdivisions, obviously, we're going to.
I mean, in a lot of our more rural areas where we don't have curb, gutter, and sidewalk, that's probably not a big deal because most people are pulling further off the road. But in an area where you have curb, gutter, and sidewalk, you're parking on the road.
Yep.
And any city or town, big or small, that I've ever lived in besides Morgan, which hasn't been very many, have had an ordinance that between like November 1st and April 1st, you can't park.
We have the same ordinance.
Do we have that ordinance?
Carol Morrison will let you know that.
Okay, good. I'm glad we have that ordinance.
Yeah.
We should probably make that better known.
Maybe we don't
in some
enforce
way.
it. I know the city
Maybe we need to
does.
enforce it.
Yeah, I know the city does.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll look for a motion for preliminary plat, 21 lot subdivision, Woodland Drive.
Nope. I'm trying to find all the things.
Got me too?
Sure, you've got it in front of you.
I move to approve the Shady Creek Estates preliminary plat application 22.035, allowing for a 21 lot subdivision of land located at 5700 West, Woodland Drive in Mountain Green, based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 16th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to approve the preliminary plat for 21 lot subdivision, Woodland Drive and Mountain Green. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move to item number 7. Discussion decision, airport lease for 9-lane hangar and U.S. Forest Service facility.
So, and I don't know if Buster was able to join remotely, he's the applicant on this, but this is something that we've had substantial discussions about as a commission, and they were sent out by email. There were some comments back, but not enough to just move forward administratively and ratify it today, and so these are before us. Buster did come in and sign both leases last week while he was in town. He's back out in California fighting fires again. The first lease for the company hangar is the only, or I guess I can outline the differences. That has difference in the leasable square foot of building footprints. The U.S. Forest Service actually, because we understand that will also be leased at a certain rate, will charge more per square foot of leasable building footprint. So that's one change. Also in the U.S. Forest Service agreement, it does allow for the U.S. Forest Service to operate anything that's allowed under the GSA standards, which are federal aviation controlled, and so it does allow them to do that beyond just the commercial things that are available to the 9-line company hangar. The only other difference between the two agreements is in
what was it, the rates?
Yeah, so I talked about the rates. Sorry, I'm trying to see. I think they might be in different orders.
It was in a different document we received last time, but it's not in this one here.
The rate itself?
The actual rate for the Forest Service one.
It's right here in section 2.
So I think that
24
the
cents
same
per
lease
square
was
foot, 8
scanned
cents per
twice in the
square
packet.
foot.
So
Oh, do
there
you
were
have
two,
the same one?
so
Yeah.
I think that's what's
There's
going
the
on.
paper
I'm
copy.
looking for
I've got this.
provisions that aren't in the
I've got
packet,
that.
so.
Okay. All right, that's the thing I was missing.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, they have the same.
They have the same one in both.
All right, hold
Did
on.
you want to see that one?
So-
The paper copy, or you can do
Yeah, so Mike, if you pull up that paper copy, if you look in the section, sorry, let me go back to here. If you go back to section 3A, there is a provision that allows for an extension of time to build the hangar if there's delays caused by the U.S. Forest Service. And the idea behind that is to say, well, Nine Line can't control when approvals come from, federal government or, whatever is going on with the U.S. Forest Service. And so there is a little bit more leeway with the deadline. The intent is to have it up and running as soon as possible, but he wanted that provision in there just because it's not up to him. It's involving a third party that's not a party to this agreement.
So he thinks the federal government is going to make things difficult. I can't imagine why.
It'll be that way.
Their feet before.
It'll be that way.
I don't know if Buster's on.
I think that makes total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so, anyway, so this, are there any questions between the two? The only other change I made, if you look on page 5 of the lease, I noticed that some of these added provisions didn't have the underline, and so I just changed that to add the underline so it's in conformity with the rest of the document for each numbered paragraph. But other than that, it matches exactly what I sent out.
Okay.
May I provide some
A couple weeks
information
ago.
about this? Or no?
Sure.
I'm fine with it.
So.
I think it's already being addressed
Yeah.
in emails that are going around the
Talking
Well,
about
commission.
I don't have
situation.
specifics about the Forest Service negotiations or however that's going, but I'm here to really say that Wasatch Helitech, which is based at Morgan Airport, is a huge asset for the fire service here. The proposals have bounced that organization to many different places, and including Ogden, Hinckley, and they were going to build a facility at Pine View, and all these other things. All I'm here to tell you is that in the last 3 to 4 years, Wasatch Helitech has been on the scene of our fires here in Morgan County quickly, because they are based here. Even at the Uinta fire, right through the canyon, they were unable to fly, but came in their trucks as quick as they could to help us battle that fire, which was huge 5 years ago. So I think I'm just really kind of speaking in support of us trying to be supportive of what they're going to do at the airport, or hopefully we'll be able to do at the airport. I think it's a huge benefit for the community to maintain Wasatch Helitech here as best as we can.
We do too.
Thank you, Chief. I agree.
I agree.
We're thrilled to see the Forest Service and Helitech wanting to stay here. So, in fact, we talked previously about trying to do whatever we needed to ensure that they did stay. That's a huge asset for our community. It's a benefit to all of us. So, and a good thing to have at our airport. So.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
I know when he first started talking to us, when Buster did, he talked about that he would potentially have fuel also that he would be able to sell to the other airplanes and so forth. Is that being denied because it's not in the lease? Or can he do it according to the code 8-5H- whatever it was, 7?
So, Buster, you're on, because there's another individual that's also working through things at the airport. But Buster, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. So we have not had any plans to do that. Of course, building that into a lease in case the other individual doesn't do it might be beneficial for just building what I call maneuver space and engaging to have that. But we right now don't have any plans. We did not view that as a primary line of revenue. And we were in conflict with the other individuals. So since we had little interest and he was doing it, we thought we were more complimentary by not planning to sell fuel.
Okay, yeah, I was just hoping that one of you are going to be doing that. That was my wish. So it was either you or Brent, I don't know which. So I'm just.
Brent was it, yep.
Yeah, so I was just hoping that it was one of you that was gonna do a fuel service there at the airport, because we need it.
If Brant does not, Nine Line would certainly look at that in going into the future, because I agree it would be nice to have it back there. So I'm not ruling it out, but it's not part of our current business plans. And if Brant does change direction, then we would certainly look to help.
So would, Garrett, do we have to go and have that specifically put in here, or is that, can that be an add-on?
I think it can be handled through paragraph 11, talking about lease modifications and amendments. It would just be an amendment signed by both parties, and if everyone's on the same page. I think part of the discussion as the airport has evolved is to kind of stay in their own lanes, and I know that Buster and Brant have talked, and they're going to respect what each other is planning to do. But if for some reason something doesn't materialize, I think it could be amended.
Okay.
And the commission would probably be in support of it based on the discussion today.
Yeah, I'm in support of it. I just want to make sure we have it. That's all I'm asking for, is that we do have it. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? I know we've discussed multiple times with him. Okay, if not, I'll look for a motion for the lease agreements here.
I move to approve the 2 leases between the county and Nine Line for Nine Line's company hangar and the proposed USFS building, the U.S. Forest Service building, from the approved CUP that was done on August 2nd, 2022.
I'll second it.
A motion, a second, to approve the 2 leases for space at the Morgan County Airport between Morgan County and Nine Line. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, item number 8, we discussed in our work session. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Commissioner Wilson? Okay.
Not at this time.
And then item number 9, I've just asked Julie to add this so that we kind of keep it on our radar. We haven't had any more discussion since our last meeting on ARPA, but is there anything you guys would like to discuss ARPA-wise before we?
I just want to make sure that are still keeping in the radar the money needed by the city for that water well or water tank. So just so that we continue that, and then we also need to be working on some other items with it.
Yeah, that city item is still on our list. There hasn't been any changes in our list for about 3 months, but
right.
We probably ought to have some more work session time and discuss if we'd like to advance anything on that list.
I do have a question on it. Have we received the last portion of it yet? Because I've been asking and I have not heard.
I have not heard either, and I haven't received any notification.
Do we need to go and follow up with UAC or somebody else to get it approved so we get it? Because I was under the understanding we had to have it requested sometime in May, and now we're in August.
I do not know.
Okay.
I know. Put that down and I can follow up on it, Julie, as a follow-up item for me.
Okay. That's all I have on it.
All right, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Fackrell.
I just want to say that the Morgan County Fair was wonderful. In my opinion, I don't know the final results. I was there all day Friday, helping out as much as I could. I wanted to be there Saturday, but I got COVID again, so I'm kind of out of it at that point. And so anyway, that's I thought it was a great event. It was busy, really busy. And I just want to tell the Fair Board, you did a good job. I know that there were some problems, but you guys have taken care of them, I hope. And it was fun having Matt sit in the back of that nice, wonderful truck of Mike Newton's around the parade route, so we appreciate it.
Awesome. I would just echo that. Appreciate the Fair Board and their efforts on the county fair. And as we approach budget season for all of our county employees, it's time to start looking at that. We'll start meeting with department heads soon and start figuring out next year's budget.
Have we decided on a schedule yet for trying to set that up?
No, I just asked Leslie to send out an email. We can set a schedule on that.
Okay.
I would do that right here, but we're missing a couple commissioners. I think
Right.
we need their input on this, the
Right.
timing for that.
And other than that, the Trails Committee is reconvening again on the last Monday of August. So anybody that wants to come to that, you're welcome to as a public. Come to that one. We will be discussing our education program that night, of how we're going to accomplish teaching students. And another education component is teaching the public how to get along when it comes to bike safety and bicycles and hikers and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's one of our agenda items. And I'm trying to think of what else there is. There's a lot of things going on. We have the Outdoor Summit coming up in September. That's on tourism, Office of Tourism. So if any of you want to attend that, that'd be great. Got a lot of things coming up here at the end of the year. Got a lot to do. No time for vacation, Matt.
Commissioner Wilson, do you have any comments?
No, I've just started receiving emails on property values going up and taxation again, so just want to admonish everyone to go to your local school board meetings as well as these meetings, because the school board has a lot more increases than we have, so they need to be involved in that process with truth and taxation there, and the budget process there too. So, and they're love them to come here. They can see how hard we work at trying to keep things down. So,
Yeah, if you have any suggestions or questions about taxes or about property taxes or about the county budget, I'd encourage you to attend our budget meetings. They're riveting.
Yeah.
5 hours long.
Yeah, hours and hours of it.
Each day.
All week. But it is a good opportunity and an eye-opening opportunity to see what actually goes into determining the county's budget for the year. A lot of work goes into that from a lot of individuals. All of our department heads work very hard on that. Our clerk, our treasurer, both work very hard, and so does the commission to ensure that we're careful. So yes, I appreciate that. Also, anyone who is interested in understanding how property taxes work in the state of Utah, I would encourage you to do a little research on that. Most people don't understand how property taxes are calculated, and if you do a little research, you'll be able to find that very quickly. There's a number of videos and tutorials out there about that. Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm proud of our fair board. They do amazing work, and that is a ton of work.
It is. It's a tremendous amount of work for hours and hours a day for a long
what they did, yeah.
But the pay is huge for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all volunteer. I've been told that we're on one of few completely volunteer boards left.
Really?
Most counties have a paid staff, at least one paid staff person that manages those.
And they keep coming back, that's what amazes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Maybe not for a month or two, because we gotta recuperate after that.
May I make one more comment?
Yeah.
If anybody in the public is interested in learning about the property taxes and all that, I know the other commissioners may not want your phone calls, but I don't mind it if you call me. Because I'd love to discuss it with you.
And I guess I have one more thing. Yes, please call Blaine.
And that's perfectly fine. I would not offer it if I didn't care to not have it.
So last year, we went through truth and taxation meetings, and the county did adjust our budget, and therefore the property tax rate was adjusted. That was the first time that Morgan County had a budget increase and an adjustment in property taxes in 5 years. So the taxes that you're going to see on your tax bill that's due this year, this November, was a result of that increase. We did a lot of education surrounding that last year, and we have some educational materials that we put together for that, but we'd be happy to share those if you have questions on it. So, yeah, I guess that's
all I
said on
have.
property taxes.
Yep.
Okay, that is all we have on our agenda. So I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for joining